Hi, I'm Lee, and I'm here to talk with you about hypnosis. Today I want to talk about hypnosis fantasy versus reality, because there's often a huge amount of discussion around hypnosis can't make you do anything that you wouldn't ordinarily do, or hypnosis is all self-hypnosis, and those things may be largely true, but I don't think they encompass the whole picture. There are definitely people who have been in an altered state of mind, who have done things that they would not ordinarily have done. And one of the reasons that may happen is that hypnosis is really a powerful tool for playing with your mind and playing with your senses. Now, some people are also way more susceptible to having somebody else tell them a thing and their brain going, oh, okay, no problem. While other people may be more skeptical or more resistant to hearing those messages, and they, are not going to find themselves in that same situation. And some people are just naturally so good at accepting unconscious suggestion that they may be totally unaware of what it is that they've made happen. Also, amnesia can factor into these things. But let's just talk about, say, somebody who is interested in doing hypnosis for a thing. They've never done it before. The chances are good that if they are simply going, say, to a hypnotist to make some changes, they've never done it before, they know nothing about it, they are open to making the changes that they are telling the hypnotist that they want to change, that they are going to have a fairly high success rate with making those changes happen. I don't have a statistic here. I can look some up for another time. But hypnosis has a pretty good success rate with a lot of different things. IBS, stopping smoking, losing weight, things like that. However, sometimes people find themselves listening to a series on something. And sometimes the series has all sorts of interesting tricks in there that prevent somebody from making changes once they've been locked in, or they make things stronger if something has been locked in. Now, sometimes these are called curse files. Sometimes they are deliberately called curse files, and you should know what you're getting by looking at the file name, looking at the description of the file. And some people want that, right? Some people want that. So what does that mean? That you need to find a curse breaker to take the effects away? Yes and no. Sometimes a hypnotic suggestion will simply fade over time. Some people have trained themselves to be really skeptical, or they just are naturally so, and they're not going to accept a suggestion unless they really want to accept the suggestion. Or sometimes people will accept a suggestion for a short period of time, and that's totally fine too. Sometimes people want something that is so crazy and extreme, and they've never done hypnosis before, but they're like, I want to be turned into, say, X kind of critter. But they've never done any hypnosis at all. They may have fantasized about what it would be like to be turned into that character, so their mind may be predisposed to make these things feel intensely real to them as they are going through a hypnotic experience designed for that purpose. Or somebody who may have never thought about doing one of those things and has no interest in it might listen to the same thing and go, didn't really work for me. Maybe I felt this, but none of the rest of it. So those experiences can be really common. And so sometimes people want to do something, but they haven't really put a lot of themselves into the process of making it happen. And that can be something that means that it's not going to be very successful. Always? No, but a large portion of the time it's not going to be. I am one of those people who thinks it is far better to learn to crawl before you walk, before you run, And I think the same is true for a lot of hypnosis things. That does not mean that hypnosis cannot be powerful and make changes for you and within you the first time you do it, especially if you have a skilled hypnotist who is leading you down these paths. However, sometimes you want to do something really, really badly, and you have a lot of support, and it can still take a long time until the hypnotic suggestions, triggers surrounding those suggestions, maybe to turn something on or off, or how it functions, don't take right away. Despite all your best efforts, despite all the hypnotist's best efforts, sometimes these things take time. Not everyone wants to hear that. They want to hear the fantasy of, oh, I put on these headphones or I talked to this hypnotist and then bam, this particular specific fantasy of yours just magically happened. Less likely to happen, not impossible, depending on the person. So, what can you do to make things better for you? Because most people certainly don't want to go into a hypnotic session and have some unintended consequence, whether in their own mind or body, or having somebody else do something or take advantage of them in a way that they don't find acceptable after the fact. So, first of all, it is good to talk with your hypnotist about specifically what you are looking to get out of this, and also what you don't like or what you definitely don't want. That way you both have an understanding of what your parameters are, and then you can go from there. And the hypnotist has a good idea of, oh, I'm not going to talk about water, or I'm going to, you don't want me to touch you if you're doing this in person. You don't want me to touch you at all when we're doing this sort of thing. And these are things that maybe people are like, well, I didn't think they were going to touch me. Some people might not. Sometimes, and I try to ask when I do this, especially if I am doing this in a one-on-one setting with somebody who's the first time, but I might ask them if it's okay for me to hold their hand and to tap the back of their hand, or if it's okay for me to put my hand on their arm or their knee, for example. And if they're not okay with it, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I won't do it if they don't want it to be done. It can impact the kind of things I would want to demonstrate, or the kind of things that somebody might actually feel. For example, if I was anchoring in, if I was going to be anchoring in a suggestion for a feeling or a sensation, sometimes touch can help really emphasize that something is getting stronger or more powerful, or weaker or less powerful. And if I'm giving them a suggestion to do this to themselves, and it's their first time in trance, it can be a little distracting for them to do that to themselves while they're supposed to be in trance. Not impossible, again. Sometimes it's just a little more challenging, but the subject's wishes about touch, or about, what suggestions they're willing to go forward with, should always be respected, of course. And you can make things happen with your subject. Just depends on what it is that you want to do and what it is that they're willing to do. So if I say to somebody that I think you should crawl before you walk, before you run, in my mind, what that means is that the first thing you should be able to do is to go into trance and come out of it. And you should be able to come out of it with a trigger, that's a suggestion, a phrase, that allows you to go right back into trance. It's very helpful, especially if you're seeing a hypnotist to get some work done, as opposed to simply going to experience hypnosis for the sake of that experience. If you simply want to go and experience hypnosis for the depth of trance, or how good you can feel, and you may never want to do it again, and you want to try different types of suggestions or inductions. That's what we call the word when we bring somebody into a state of trance, as an induction. Then it's totally fine to just have that happen, to not have a reinduction trigger, and to simply have that experience and have a good time with it. if you are looking to do some sort of work with hypnosis, I find that it's really helpful to set up that trigger to go back deeply into trance, not only for that session, but if you had any other subsequent sessions where you needed to adjust or tweak something a little bit, or if you had other things that you also wanted to work on, it's really nice to be able to simply go, oh, I have this thing, we can drop you into trance. You're simply going to keep dropping more deeply into trance as I talk and as I go on, but this helps us to get to the work faster. So if you've ever wondered sometimes why somebody will suggest a reinduction trigger and somebody might not, it might be because of those two different types of sessions. And I'm certain that there are other different types of sessions out there that people can have that may require totally different things. Like if you're doing some sort of really physical kind of hypnotic session where you're using your body a lot against them or with them, like dancing or something along those lines. You may not have those types of things at all. You may use a physical thing to make that happen. Again, with direct conversation about what it is that you want and acceptance of the suggestions that are being given to you. So I think it's really important that if you want to come to a hypnotist with a fantasy that you would like to make some kind of reality in your head, you have to understand that the reality and the fantasy may not exactly be the same. And it's really good for your brain to go as powerfully as possible into what you expect from that for your hypnotist. Because your hypnotist is going to want to be able to deliver. That's what we're here for, right? We're here to deliver a service. You want to do this thing. We're going to use our brains to get your brains to do what you want. So the more descriptive you can be, the more you can tell us the types of things that you're looking to make happen, the better. And then we drop you into a trance. We make sure that you can come out and go back into trance so we can do those things. We suggest perhaps that part of that starts to happen and we see where we go from there. If that's the logical point for you to begin making this change, great. We don't want to start at like step 10 when you haven't even gotten steps 1 through 9 down yet. So we want to make sure that we understand clearly where you're coming from, where you want to go, and how you might expect to get there. Even if you can't fill in all the details yourself, the more information you can give us about yourself, the better it can be. So in the NLP world, neuro-linguistic programming, it's called ecology. So the more ecological a suggestion can be, the more likely your brain is to follow the suggestion. Like, we don't want to give you a suggestion to stop smoking and not address the social aspects of that. If that's how you met all your friends and all your friends are smokers, and that's how you spend a majority of time with them out on smoke breaks or smoking with them or whatever. So anything along those lines, we want to make sure that we give you the strongest, most powerful fighting chance to make those suggestions stick inside you so that you find yourself not just wanting to make those changes, but accepting that those changes have already been made inside of you, and then noticing that your behavior changes to match that new way of thinking about whatever it was that you were doing. So think about what it is that you want. Think about the way that you might find yourself sensing that change within you, and allow your unconscious mind to be as descriptive as you can when you talk to your hypnotist, because that will allow the hypnotist to be as descriptive as possible talking to your brain. It is often better when we use your words for you as opposed to our words. Hypnotists tend to speak in a lot of metaphor because metaphors are usually easily understood snippets of language that are quick and easy for the brain to digest, whether it's in pictures or a feeling, whatever it happens to be. Our brain usually grasps the idea of a metaphor. If you are going to a hypnotist who speaks a different language than you, that may not be the case. Metaphors vary widely from country to country and region to region. So something that I think is a perfectly reasonable metaphor to use about something, your brain may be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then if I explained it in greater detail, you might go, oh, you mean blah, 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 something totally different. And I'd be like, yes, but I've never heard of it that way before. So then I would use your words and your brain would immediately grasp the concept and you could make those changes more quickly and easily. The communication that you have with your hypnotist is super, super important. Because the more you share with us exactly what you want to do and exactly why you want to do things, the why is less important, but the what you want to do and some of the why is important, the quicker we can get you to doing the things that you're really interested in making happen. So you have this gigantic fantasy, you've never been hypnotized before, you've been thinking about it or reading about it, you're not sure, maybe you've listened to a file or watched a video, you're not sure that you've ever had an experience of really being hypnotized, and you want to know how you can become hypnotized. You want to know that you can know you were hypnotized. Stage hypnotists and therapists and recreational hypnotists often use convincers. That's, I was demonstrating this earlier in another video where I say, you put your hands together and they get pulled together like they're opposite pole magnets, and when they touch, you drop deeply into trance. I'm not going to do it right now, but you could probably see my fingers are moving closer and closer together. That is a function of the way our muscle tension works, and that's okay because the important thing is that the fingers eventually touch. The important thing is that we can disrupt a conscious thought pattern or action that you have going on, and then your brain is like, oh dear God, like we go to shake your hand and then we put your hand in front of your face and we just gently push it toward your hand and it moves toward your forehead, and when it touches your forehead you drop into trance and you can see your hand like moving closer and closer to your forehead. And some people are like sort of stuck there, they're a little frozen, and they're like, oh, my hand's moving closer and closer, I can feel it touching my forehead, I know when it touches my forehead I'm going to drop, and then they, so I mean, these things are fun convincers that allow you to know that some part of you is paying attention to what the hypnotist is saying. If some part of you is paying attention to what the hypnotist is saying and is eager to work with the hypnotist, then you're going to have a lot more success usually with getting the things done you'd like to do than not. So allow your brain to think about the things that you might want to find yourself doing with a hypnotist. What is it that compels you to maybe seek out a hypnotist or to look at this video and go, oh, I want to be hypnotized? Let your unconscious mind think about the things that you're interested in making changes in, the thoughts that you are eager to change. And maybe, maybe they're just like, I need to be more confident. I want to be able to walk into my company's meetings and own that place. I want to be able to have a meeting with the head of some company that I'm supposed to sell something to and close the sale really easily and effortlessly. I want them to focus on me, to pay attention to me, to ask me the right questions, and to be able to give them a confident, competent answer that makes them really eager to work with me so that they can close that business with me. That might be a thing that you find yourself wanting to do. Maybe you just don't want to tolerate somebody who's giving you crap somewhere, and to be able to, say the right thing to them that gets them to go away, or to just ignore them and walk on by. However you find yourself thinking about what you might want to do or what you might want to change, you can probably find a hypnotist to help you with that who will empower your dreams in that way. So those things can become your reality. So you might find yourself thinking about them. Is this my reality? Is this just a fantasy that I have in my head and I'd like to make these things happen? Sometimes having those fantasies in your head, if you're the kind of person that can visualize or imagine or sense that type of thing, if you share those with a hypnotist, sometimes they can help you unlock actually making those actions happen so that you don't freeze, you don't hide, you don't turn away, you face a thing head on and you just take action on that idea that you've had in your head that would make you feel better and better. There are all sorts of ways to make a thing happen. So don't worry if that one particular thing is not exactly what happens. Your unconscious mind often has the answer to what it is that you'd like to make happen and how to do it best in a way that is comfortable for you, in a way that is exciting for you, in a way that gets it done for you. So however you do it, know that there are plenty of ways to make the things that you want to make happen happen. And if you do have a fantasy that you'd like to make happen, I suggest that you first do that crawling, then walking, and then running. If you want, for example, to have a partner do some really elaborate scenario with hypnosis, you want to break those down into pieces and parts, and you want them to be able to do one thing really well, then add something else in, and then add something else in. And that's why when I talk about things like a reinduction trigger, bringing somebody back into that state of trance quickly so you can get to doing the work, you can notice that sometimes you can have somebody that is so responsive and receptive that you can tell them all the steps that you want them to make happen. And you can say, now, first, you're going to do this. And then you practice and you make sure that they can do that. And then you add the next one in, and the next one, and the next one. And then pretty soon you have all of the steps done and down. And then that person is doing the thing that you and or they, hopefully both of you, wanted to make happen. And it could be really quite amazing. So whether or not you want to do this to a partner or you want to have this done to you or with yourself, please know that there are a variety of assorted ways to make this happen. But I'm always going to suggest that you start at the beginning. Learn what it's like to go into trance for yourself. Learn what it feels like for yourself, because not everybody responds the same way. And the more you find out what hypnosis is for you and what you can instinctively do with it, the better off it's going to be. So hold on to those thoughts. Let them percolate in your brain. Let your unconscious mind think about how fun it could be to make some of your interests, your wildest dreams, your fantasies become your reality. Whether that's simply a change in behavior that allows you to start or stop doing something that you're really interested in making happen, or whether that happens to be a complete and utter change in your life. So, however you want to do that, think about all the options that are out there. Feel free to ask any questions. If you like this sort of content, please like and subscribe. And if you don't, well, that's too bad. I'm probably going to keep making it. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks for being here, and I appreciate it if you watched all the way to the end. Thanks.